So we're starting. Bam, bam, boom. Hello, and welcome to the Universe Podcast. On this podcast, we try to bring social justice issues, to roundtable discussion. And this week, you're here with Gabe
and Ana.
Hi.
We said each other's names.
We have that. We just have that synergy.
Finish each other's
sandwiches.
Yay. Okay.
And today we're going to be talking about
UNC as a liberal campus. What does that mean?
What does
liberal mean? What does a UNC? What does a liberal campus mean?
What does UNC mean?
What does UNC mean? What does a liberal UNC versus not liberal UNC? What does that mean?
And what does it even mean to be liberal? Like, why?
Exactly.
Why is that the moniker given? Sometimes it's like embraced, like I'm liberal, and other times it's like a pejorative, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. But first thing I want to talk about is something that, regardless of if you're at UNC or not, you might have heard of because it was in the national news.
Oh, for real?
Was the Department of Education recently said that they threatened to reduce some funding to UNC's partnership program with Duke on Middle Eastern studies. And the reasoning was that the program was considered too pro-Islam. Ooh, dear, Islamophobia there.
I don't know what that could mean, pro-Islam. I don't.
Yeah, so over the summer, around August, the Department of Education put out a letter to this consortium, I think is how that word is pronounced.
Yeah, consortium. Yeah, that sounds right.
To this consortium, saying that they didn't qualify for some Title VII federal funding because some of the programs were, let me find the exact wording that is in the letter.
Citation.
The consortium does not sufficiently advance national security interests, was one of the complaints.
National security
interests.
Okay. All right.
And that it portrayed the positive views or the positives of Islam while not doing the same for other religions in the Middle East, like Christianity and Judaism. Those were the two other religions that were mentioned in the specific letter. And I've read the letter, and a lot of the complaints in the letter are straight up false. They are claiming that things happen on this campus or in this Middle Eastern studies program that just don't, like being aggressively pro-Islam, I guess. They cited all these like classes and seminars and various events that were planned to be put on by the Middle Eastern Studies program. Yeah. And they cited them as, again, not sufficiently advancing national security issues. And it was really interesting because these courses and these seminars, these events, these things, they're all about, the ones that they bring up at least, were all about like multiculturalism and the struggles of that Muslim students face, or Muslim people in the United States and elsewhere face against Islamophobia. It was a lot of like arts and cultural classes, and any like, it seemed like they were going after the arts and cultural classes specifically, and they were really pushing that the program needed to focus more on geopolitical and economic issues.
Okay, I have a number of things I think about that. One, I don't understand if it's Middle Eastern Studies, right? Is what it's called. Why does there have to be a national security need out of that. Or national security is what you said, right?
Yeah, national security.
That's not, I don't think that language is used for like an Asian studies or like Korean studies or Latinx studies, or why for this particular area does it have to be national? That's very odd.
Yeah.
And on top of that, of all the things, you would think that economics and policy and political, that would cause like a lot more disruption than caring about like the arts. Like everybody's supposed to enjoy the art.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand, what's the problem, and maybe I'm ignorant about it. Maybe maybe there's things I don't know. But based on what you're saying, I don't understand how the culture of an area can be what it seems like a bit threatening to some people.
Interesting.
So how does this tie? How does this relate? Give me the lowdown.
Well, this is not the first time that UNC has been nationally criticized for the way that it handles Islam and Muslim students on campus and studies about Islam and that sort of thing. Back in 2001, in October of 2001, UNC put on a series, or some faculty members of UNC put on a series of teach-ins as a debriefing after 9/11, and to talk about the effects of 9/11 on the cultural sphere, I guess. And there was a lot of criticism from especially conservatives and conservative radio hosts like Rush Limbaugh. There was a lot of attacks on UNC, verbal verbal criticism on UNC for being too liberal, and UNC over and over again has been called a liberal campus. So what's that about? That's what we really want to talk about.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah. What even is liberalism? And especially when the discourse in the United States, as being an American or United States citizen, can sometimes be very myopic on.
Good word.
Thank you. You put in an SAT because I'm a college student. But we can be very myopic about our own perspectives, as if this is how it works everywhere. Democracy is everywhere, and everyone participates in it, and this is the perfect system for everyone. Which I'm not arguing against. Democracy.
No, I know.
But we have this American way, and it extends to other things like our politics, where we think liberalism and conservatism being, if you have conservative values, you have to align on a number of things, like you're not for abortions, you're against government intervention in certain things, and if you're a liberal, then that means for some conservatives that you're just a horrid person who's just destroying the family of the United States. But liberals are they're pro-choice or for abortions or abortion access.
Yeah, exactly.
They're for marriage equality or a number of different things, and this is what a liberal is, and what a so it seems like, especially in the discourse now, there's debates going on, and there's a lot of talk of the radical left,
yes,
liberals being too far to the left now, too progressive, and I'd like to take it back to the definition, to the base definition, and the primary meaning of it, where our perspective of liberal as being incredibly progressive, actually, when we look in the global scale, liberal in the United States is actually more to the center.
Exactly.
Liberal comes from neoliberal, and if you take it in economics class, y'all, it was not coined by Milton Friedman, but he was one of the most like influential scholars for it. And liberal in the American sense is very much tied to capitalism. Capitalism, liberalism, and capitalism are very much tied together.
Yeah.
And I know for some people it's like, what? These liberals are trying to make us socialists and change us to Venezuela. and it's when I can think of some examples, but I say that it's always about the coin, the money, the how we got to this sort of all these free trade agreements and free market was under Democratic President Bill Clinton is when we started getting like all those great trade deals, booming,
Yes.
whatever. And they're more for trade and free trade. That is what liberalism is. It's free. Liberal is actually like free.
Means free.
Free. And like it's in the United States, we've had this two-party system where liberals or Democrats can sort of coincide all these different things that aren't really tied to the
unified.
Thank you. That aren't actually tied to the key values of it, which is capitalism.
Neoliberalism, like in its origins, in like scholarly thought, and Milton Friedman especially, who I've begrudgingly read, he talks about neoliberalism as it's a free market, so free market laissez-faire capitalism, but with some intervention by the government to break up things like monopolies and stimulate economic growth. So it's capitalism, free market capitalism with low-level government intervention. So that's really where the term liberal comes from. That's really what liberalism as a political ideology is. And in places that aren't the United States, liberal often means that, and it often is used to refer to, or used by the people themselves to refer to those who are more right of center than left. So it's really interesting to think about how these terms are used in different ways and what they mean to different people. So now that we've covered that liberalism might not be what you think it is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about liberal campus. Let's talk about UNC as a liberal campus. So UNC as a campus that is pro free market capitalism with low-level government intervention.
It's all about that coin. You gotta put the T at the end of it. Because that's how. So you can hear the chinkling. The chinkling of.
I've lost my train of thought. That's good for a podcast.
UNC is about like capitalism.
UNC about free market capitalism. Yeah. So UNC is a public school. We get government funding, obviously, as we talked about with the Department of Education. But we also rely on donors a lot, and the Board of Trustees. So if their view is of liberalism in the sense of free market capitalism, that might change the way that UNC sort of influence the way that UNC operates. But I want to talk about the students and the faculty of UNC and the way that they sort of view and practice liberalism or not.
Because if we are going with the perspective that liberalism really does care about people, and we're trying to make sure everyone is inclusive and has a seat at the table, baby. Let's see if they actually do it. Or
can you hear our bias?
Or if it really is, more about the coin. Continue. Go ahead. You're doing great.
Well, I think for a lot of students at UNC and a lot of people who are on the outside of UNC looking in, I think they use the word liberal and view liberal as meaning socially progressive.
Yes.
Which can still tie into free market capitalism, absolutely. You can have views that are complicated.
Nuance.
Nuanced views. So, gosh, where am I going with this? Gotta cut some confusion and pauses out.
Anna, it's like you were talking about UNC. For the students here,
UNC for the students here.
Like when people talk about like, oh, UNC is a liberal campus, people have this idea that, oh, liberalism is social progressivism, but as we said, it's not. You know, so how does do they
what
fit that
relationship?
How do they really fit the social progressive image that some people really have of UNC and hold actually that highly, that they may have, a social progressive stance?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this campus is viewed as an overwhelmingly liberal campus. And I think that gets thrown around a lot and used as a pejorative, as you said, but liberal campus itself used as a pejorative. And I'm thinking specifically about, and we had to talk about it, we can't not, if you're a UNC student, you've been waiting for this, the Vanity Fair article from last year.
Oh gosh, do you know what stories I have about that? Go ahead. You want to do the background on the Vanity Fair article, and then I have to say some anecdotes.
Oh, please do. Please do. One second. Okay, I need some water.
Drink. This is the time you can also take a water break. Agua is very good for you. Take a sip. Okay, this is your
take a sip, babes.
This is your daily reminder that water is good. It took me forever to realize that.
You're an adult.
Okay, well, when I was a child, all I wanted to do was drink Capri Suns, and I'm like, water has no flavor.
You can add flavor to water. Get some lemon in there, baby. Vanity Fair article.
Okay, Vanity Fair.
So last year, I think it was September of 2018.
Yeah, it was like early.
Let me check the exact date. It's loading.
It was definitely early last
November 29th, 2018 is when the article was published.
Okay.
The article...
But probably the interviews were... I was going to say probably the interviews were like some...
Yeah, in the article, the author says that the interviews were around September, I think.
Yeah.
Early September. The title of the article, in case you want to read it for the first time or find it again, if you've already read it, is "They Say We're White Supremacists," that's in quotations, "inside the strange world of conservative college women." So last year, there was a big buzz about this article because this Vanity Fair journalist came to campus and asked conservative women about their politics and their life as conservative women on UNC's campus. A lot of the things said by these women were about how they feel unwelcome on the campus, or they feel like it's, one of the quotes was that it's hard to date as a conservative woman on campus.
I'm just, go ahead.
We're making faces at each other a little bit. No faces.
I am doing nothing. How I feel attacked personally right now.
Then you might relate to how these women are feeling.
Absolutely relate. Do you know the struggle? These women are minorities.
Oh, God.
And that's as a black woman, I relate.
Oh dear. No objective journalism here, and I am 100% okay with that.
I can't believe. See, it's because I'm not a liberal like you that you have to accuse me I can't believe this.
I am not a liberal. Please, God, I'm not a liberal. I'm not.
Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going.
We're going off the rails a little bit today. It's one of those days, I feel like. So they felt like it was hard for them to date as a conservative woman. It was hard for them to freely express their conservative views for fear of dirty looks. Was one of the things that was mentioned. Yeah. Dirty looks, bad dates.
I think somewhere in the article it's like someone, they had like a sticker or button and someone like said something about it. Or
name calling is one of the things they said that they faced. Name calling, the names specifically being racist, misogynist, white supremacist, those sorts of valid criticisms.
Those sorts of criticisms that they received.
Can you tell how we feel about this?
So actually, here's my anecdote.
Please.
After this article, I'm in a particular group chat.
Oh, I know what you're about to say. Okay.
So I went, someone invited me to go to the Senate meeting because one of the women featured in this article, let me see, they have her name here. Let me say her name. Her name is Caitlin McKinney. At the time, she was 19. And she served, I think she may have been reelected, possibly. Okay. But she definitely served on a UNC government position. And so I was there and I saw her. And this was to offer some context. When these women were interviewed, this was a week after the Confederate soldier statue on campus was taken down, toppled. Toppled is better because taken down makes it sound like, it was UNC took some and that was not the case.
That was not true.
It was also a month before Christine Blasey Ford testified against Brett Kavanaugh. But going back to the toppling, they were coming up with a statement of what to say because when I went to the meeting, UNC just declared that they were going to spend, I think, $5 million? $5 million,
yep.
$5 million, somewhere around that number.
5.3, I think.
Yeah, I think 5.3 was that number.
I think it was the exact number.
Yeah, because I remember the reaction that I had to that number. Anyway, and they were deciding on whether or not they should condemn this statement. And Caitlin McKinney, oh man, I remember their names. I remember the names of the other people who decided not to vote at all to a statement saying that this was not a good idea. I remember a woman named Baird, B-A-I-R-D was her last name, who just straight up voted no to the statement. Anyway, I remember one of these people's faces. And I would say this person's name considering they served. And so their name is up there so you can see. But I have respect. I have a class with her. She sits right next to me. And it took me, I looked at her one day and I was like, you look familiar. And it hit me who this person was. And I actually had a conversation. She has no idea that she does not remember me, but I remember her very clearly. I remember her name, everything, of how she didn't vote at all in this statement. And on her book bag is Women for Trump, and pro-women, pro-science, pro-life is also one of her other buttons on her book bag. And I will tell you something, person who sits next to me in class, if you are listening to this, I have been totally respectful towards you. I've been totally nice towards you. We've had wonderful conversations. I am able to be civil and kind because I do have respect for other people who have different opinions than me. So I will also say, and I think you're alluding to it, name calling, and those aren't good things. Name calling is, I work with children, tell them like name calling is not an appropriate thing to do. It's nowhere near the level of policies that leave you to die. And I know someone's going to be like, oh, you're exaggerating. Okay, let's talk real quick aside to Puerto Rico and how they lacked funding and how people died because of the storm, but they definitely died because they didn't have access to health care or resources that they could have gotten to because of the damage of that, and how they have not received their funds that should be given to them as citizens. Like, at the very least, with this pro-America, America First message, at the very least should be given to them, but it is not. There are people who have served in the U.S. military to gain citizenship, yet it is taken away by the repealing of DACA. There are people who have felt emboldened by certain words by a certain man in the White House, who is the, 45th president, right? 45 is what they call him?
I think so. I never remember.
45th president who has said words that have emboldened white supremacists to commit crimes, and they do it in his name. It is nowhere near that same level of name calling.
Yeah.
But that's an aside. I don't think it's that big of an aside.
No, it's not. I don't think so either.
It goes back to, for those who feel that this campus, you know, your words are completely, you're run out of here or persecuted. I sit next to you. You are not persecuted.
No, not persecuted. And, you know, we can see that with how the UNC administration and the UNC, the higher ups.
Yeah, the administrators. Yeah, that's fine.
The way they handle student activism, and not just students, but faculty as well. The way they handle what is allowed to be said and talked about and displayed on this campus. If you remember when a certain man that they talked about in our first episode, little old Pat McCrory, the previous governor of North Carolina, who is a Republican and passed laws like HB2 and did a lot of pro-fracking stuff, strong ties to Duke Energy. He came to this campus to give a lecture series via the Institute of Politics, which is a group on campus. He was paid for this lecture series, which was, I think, once a week for a few weeks in the spring of 2019. He was given money for this lecture series. He was given police protection for this series. He mentioned in the first episode that there was a small protest movement against his involvement on campus. That was actually me. I did that. I was the one who organized that primarily. We made posters. We talked about, we tried to talk to him about why his presence on campus was a problem. And we were threatened with removal from the room by the police. We were told that we could face honor court violations for disrupting the classroom event. So
I guess because it's a classroom event, they said that they can put honor code to that. Is that why?
I guess.
Okay.
I guess. Essentially, we students, many of us queer and trans, who are directly threatened by laws like HB2, literally our lives are threatened by those laws. The man who created that and who was and and who
instrumental.
yeah, and who promotes that kind of rhetoric, and who does not come to UNC. He is not a UNC scholar or associated with UNC other than the fact that he was governor and we're in the same state. He's given protection while the students are endangered. So it's things like that, things like
and also I like to say with there's a dissonance and maybe inviting someone who has rhetoric that can be harmful and endangering to trans people, non-binary people. And then also, in some instances, like, oh, we have gender-neutral bathrooms.
Yes.
We do these things, but there's a bit of a dissonance in those cases.
So here is the crux of it, I think. Herein lies I think the biggest point is that there is a massive contradiction on UNC's campus of what they say they're doing and what they're actually doing in terms of liberalism and progressivism.
So it's kind of like marketing, advertising.
Also.
Capitalism.
There is this performative progressivism that is advertised all over campus. You see, if you're a UNC student, if you've been on the campus, you see things like the UNC for All with these photos of people of many races and many genders. Actually, I don't know. I'm assuming, but I think about 2 genders are represented on those. So this diverse population, UNC for all.
We're so diverse, y'all.
But then we get actions by the UNC administration that show maybe UNC doesn't want all people.
Maybe it's marketing. And I think, I don't know. We will say at the end of this podcast that like we'd love to hear your thoughts and everything.
Of course.
But I think this is one thing where conservatives pointed out sometimes where it's like, you guys say you're so inclusive and stuff, but you're not. I'm sorry, conservatives, I made you sound like that. It was the first thing. I'll make you sound like, you guys say you're so inclusive and stuff, but you don't actually include everyone. And honestly, you say UNC for all, but is it, really for all? And I think that's the criticism that, should be leveled if you're trying to really be progressive and really include other people. It's similar to some of the, you remember when I spoke to you, this is a personal thing. You remember when I spoke to you about Jay-Z
yes.
and the NFL? For those who are listening, Jay-Z is an artist who said he's a rap artist. I don't know. Maybe you heard of him. Maybe.
Maybe you don't know.
He's a husband of Beyonce.
Yeah, that's the important one.
That's the important part. But he said on a song that I said no to the Super Bowl. You need me, I don't need you. Every night I'm in the end zone. To the NFL, I'm in stadiums too. Basically saying I'm not performing at the Super Bowl because of the NFL's interaction with protests, Black Lives Matter, and Colin Kaepernick. And Colin Kaepernick's protest to advocate for Black Lives Matter and to bring light to police violence, specifically within Black communities.
Yes.
And so you may have heard about Colin Kaepernick, got, the whole thing. But there were many artists that said, I'm not going to participate in the NFL and the Super Bowl, blah, 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 because of this. Colin Kaepernick made a deal with the NFL and was compensated for being shut out of his job. And suddenly, Jay-Z is working with the NFL. There's an announcement that he's working on their music department, and they're going to come up with a coalition for social justice. And it really made people question Jay-Z, like, how can you say and proclaim that you have these values, and suddenly once you have the chance, there's word that he has a chance of being able to get a stake in an NFL team, and that's money. That's big money.
It is.
And it's like you care more about the check than you do about your actual values. And that's something that's been leveled at Jay-Z for a bit. I've been thinking of one of his other verses on where he talks about, you know, those in a certain community, like if you sell drugs, like take that drug money and like reinvest it into your community. And it's like, well, yeah, but drugs harm people. Like the drugs I mean, we're not talking about weed. The drugs you're talking about are like
hard drugs
that participated in the crisis of. There's a whole thing about the drug crisis. We're not getting deep into that, but it's like there's a bit of feeding into exploitation, as opposed to breaking barriers that allow liberation. And that's, you know, we're seeing it also in other ads of certain, there's, what was it, a shaving company that I saw an ad where like they had women who have a lot of hair, and it's like, you know, if you decide to shave, you know, shave, but also like you could, and it's like you're trying to be cool, you're trying to be hip with like people who are rejecting some of the beauty standards, but you're like, I still need to make money, so I'm going to co-opt this to, and it's all about, that's all, you know, capitalism is, we're going to win, we're going to gain any way that we can. And if that means co-opting or doing performative progressivism to say that we're really on your side, these are values that we think people like, then it's not real. It's a facade. And that's what UNC does with like, everyone's included here. You know, look how diverse we are, but how do you treat the students who are minorities on your campus? Go ahead and say something. I'm about to add a little snippet there in a moment that ties back to Jay-Z.
Okay.
It just got
we
into my
can
mind.
always tie it back to Jay-Z. It's this appealing to the broadest audience as possible.
That's liberalism.
And in a way that may be contradictory. So if UNC in its advertising and it's saying come to UNC portrays itself as progressive, as left of center, whether that's liberal or lefter than that, I don't if it portrays itself that way when it's trying to get students to come in with that type of advertising, and people who go to university tend to be to the left of the political spectrum, just statistically. So pulling that as a marketing strategy, that gets you more students in. But then actions like condemning the toppling of Silent Sam, like inviting Pat McCrory to campus and giving him police protection, like giving police protection to anti-choice, anti-abortion speakers who put up incredibly large and incredibly graphic and anatomically incorrect pictures of aborted fetuses that are incredibly triggering and traumatic to look at. So
I'd like to add one more to say that you care about minority students or Black students, but your main source of income from Black students, you don't pay them. I'm talking about sports teams.
Sports teams.
Tied it back to the NFL. Jay-Z told you I could do it. Told you I could do it.
But those actions they please the board of trustees, they please the board of governors, they please the large donors who are the ones who are older, maybe alums, majority or at least largely white and wealthy donors. So there's advertising and then there's real actions, and UNC is not as liberal a campus as people think.
Or exactly. They are liberal. It's just
They
not
are
what,
liberal.
what,
it's just
what
not
is,
what you think
it's not
liberal
what you
is.
think liberalism
Yeah, exactly.
actually is. Like they're fulfilling it. It like liberalism is center. It's trying to appeal to most people as possible because it's very tied to capital. If you're, you have a business, you want to appeal to as many people as possible because that's your market. UNC is a public university. Of course, they need to, get funds to have things continue and everything else. So they try to appeal to most people. Like that is liberalism. Guys.
That really is.
That's what it is.
And going off of that and what UNC is doing now in regards to its liberal politics and its serving of conservative donors. You heard about the program on discourse? It's changed its name several times. Program on civil discourse, program on civil discourse and virtue. It's gone through a lot of names, and it's still kind of in the works a little bit, but it's ramping up. Have you heard about it?
I actually have not heard of it.
So this program is not supposed to be a major, not supposed to be a curriculum or anything, just like a center, like how we have the Latinx Center, for example, or the LGBTQ Center.
Yeah.
It's a center supposed to be, and this is a quote from Chris Clemens, who is sort of spearheading this program. The purpose of the program is to support a culture of open, frank, respectful, productive, and public debate at UNC. Its ideological basis lies solely in a commitment to the power of the university as a place for socializing debate and democratic culture.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's great marketing. That's great.
Wrong. It's not good. Sorry, headphone listeners. I just yelled. I'm pent up about this particular program. So where this is coming from is Chris Clemens. Another guy's name is Robert George. He's got two first names.
Ooh, neat.
No, George is his last name, but it sounds like two. Anyway, Robert George, and it's being backed by the Board of Governors, who are big decision makers around the UNC system.
Yeah.
And via a Freedom of Information Act request by a faculty member, there are revealed emails that Chris Clemens sent to the nickname for him, Robbie George, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I'm reading from quotes from articles.
Yeah. All right.
Saying, this is Chris Clemens saying this.
Okay.
I'm a Republican and I'd like to have a conservative center on campus.
Okay.
So that's what he's trying to do. That's what this sort of group is trying to do, is establish a conservative center on campus.
Okay.
And you'll all notice that there isn't like a liberal or a left center on campus. Do you know of any? I don't. I know of some clubs. I know some conservative clubs. I know some liberal clubs. I know some farther on the political spectrum clubs, but I don't know about any center, so that's interesting.
Yeah, okay.
So he's saying he wants it to be this like open, frank discussion place, area for debate. But an interesting thing is that they're not allowing faculty experts to come give their thoughts and suggestions about how this program should be conceived and run. No faculty experts on civil discourse, on debate, on public discourse. They're not being allowed a say. A lot of faculty members have been rallying against this because there's so little transparency around it. and they've been arguing that, like, we don't need a center that celebrates political diversity because we already have all these centers, like the Women's Center, the LGBTQ Center, the Latinx Center, all those that celebrate our diversity at UNC. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to establish this. But the Board of Governors, who have condemned the toppling of Silent Sam, who have been behind a lot of the protections of more conservative voices on campus, they're backing it. So it makes me wonder what UNC is trying to do with this, and this might get a little bit conspiracy theory here. Shane Dawson time. I'm turning on my Shane Dawson lamp. Hey, what's up, you guys?
Dawson,
really? I just think that with the toppling of Silent Sam, with the rise, it seems, of some collective leftist activism on UNC, I get the sneaking suspicion that UNC is trying to counter the voices and the presence of leftism on campus and trying to sneakily push more people to the right. A bit conspiracy theory of me. And I recognized that it might be reaching, but there's just something in the back of my head that's saying, with all the climate on campus, that there is some push by the Board of Governors to solidify the right-wing power on campus. That's my conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory.
That's it.
Conspiracy. Okay, here's my thoughts. I'm just learning about this based off what you said. I may have heard a rumbling or a mumbling or a humming or two. I don't understand, in general, I don't understand debates. Like, let's say we have a friendly debate. From what my understanding is, a debate without a moderator is just an argument or a conversation.
Snaps to that.
It doesn't seem like, a debate has rules, you prep for everything else, and I think outside of that, it doesn't seem like the most effective way of facilitating conversation. Also, having said that, I don't necessarily know what you would, I'm not understanding what you would do. Like, even with this beautiful flowery marketing of this center, I'm still not understanding what you would do there.
Exactly.
Like, this is a center to talk. I don't know about, the conservative in me is wondering about, that's a lot of funds.
Sorry, the conservative in you.
That's a lot of funds for just a center. I mean, does UNC really need that much money?
Oh gosh, what's the funding for it? It's somewhere around a couple million. For it.
Excuse me, can you say that?
Yep. I don't have the exact number pulled up, but there's estimated like a couple million a year type thing.
Oh, I thought you said a billion.
Oh,
I'm like,
Christ, no. They're really investing in this. No, it's projected. Let me look it up so I don't falsely say. Cut out some typing.
This is another reminder to drink water while we find the number for that.
This episode is sponsored.
Oh man, please sponsor us. Someone out there.
Sponsored by water.
And the
water. You need
all
it
around
to live.
We're sponsored by the Waterbender Tribe.
Don't buy plastic water bottles. You're just paying for the plastic.
Truly, honestly.
It's free. Water should be free for everyone. Oh,
should water be a human right? See us on the next episode of Universe Podcast.
Just to play devil's advocate, I don't think everyone deserves water.
Do we really? I mean, is water necessary for life? Really, bro? Like, is it really? Like,
I think my Gatorade suffices.
I'm saying I have alk like every day, and like I'm good. So I don't know why this idea, like, freaking. What do you mean you need water? Like, just drink your own spit. Like, what are they talking about? These people are crazy. They just want handouts.
Water handouts. Just put it in your hand. Water in your hands. Make a mess. You seen that Drew Gooden vine?
No, I haven't. Have you found it yet?
No, not yet.
I think it's all right. Hey,
I want to find it.
Okay. Just roast us in the emails, y'all. Just roast us in the emails. Be like, you silly people, you couldn't find the numbers.
A part of the reason I'm confused and don't remember the number off the top of my head is because there's been some flux in what the number is. The number has changed a couple of times.
Yeah, there's also been, like you said, like flux on what even's going to be the name of it.
Exactly.
So it's definitely
changing a lot.
It's in the pre-planning stages. And what, I think we all know about like budgeting, like big budgets. It's like you can say it's going to cost this much, but over time it's probably going to cost like way more than that. At the least, it's definitely going to cost some million of dollars for a center for talking.
Yeah.
Based on, like, once you get to the meat of the the marketing or the
meat of it.
Yeah, it's
the meat of the meat.
The meat of the meat. It's for talking. And like we said in the beginning, we're all about discourse. We're all about having these conversations. For listeners, me and Gabe, don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
Like
I can't think of anything right now.
Glasses? Why can't you just see? Like, that's silly.
That's not it.
You having glasses is a metaphor for you not having higher sight like I have. No, like, I'm sure there's,
I'm sure there's things we disagree on and we haven't battled it out yet.
We just haven't battled it out yet on here. We're saving your ears for that. So we're not against discourse. We're not against being able to have these conversations. I think what everyone should be against is BS.
Yeah.
And saying something but not being honest.
Yeah.
Or completely transparent about this.
Yeah.
Especially when our funds as students, like our fees or whatever, is going to go towards this.
Exactly.
At least let us know, all right.
So, yeah, like if you're saying we want to hear all sides, we want to include all views, like some of the women in the Vanity Fair article were arguing that they just want to have respect for different views. They want people to have respect for different views, which is a fair and valid argument. But from the example that we've seen, that this program is not allowing faculty experts in on the conversation, whose different views, quote unquote, do you actually want to hear? Who are you actually including in the conversation? And it seems like that's just a recurring theme in UNC, is that they say they want to have a conversation with people with different backgrounds, and the conversation that they have is very much concentrated, as far as the political spectrum goes, in the center and to the right of center.
Yeah, and
maybe a little bit, very, very slowly branching out to the left of center, but very concentrated around the center.
Yeah, and I'd like to put it out there that UNC isn't the only place.
Oh
that
no,
is, like
no.
So many institutions or things that you say, oh, that thing so liberal, and then you get down. I mean, really, examine the meat of some of the things that you consume, things that you think are socially progressive. Get down to the meat of whether or not those values carry.
Yeah.
Even when the money may not. or even when like money isn't primary motivator or factor in that.
Yeah. So, like, if you're a student at a different university, if you have gone to a different university, if you're just curious, this is just our examples, are what we've seen and experienced around campus. But, like, do some digging into your own campus. Do some digging into places around you, like you were saying. Listen, find out what the students are saying, find out what the faculty are saying. What do people think about the actions of institutions that they are in or participate in? It's all about the experience. It's all about the reality of it. We can perform all day long, but
we got to be honest with ourselves, you know. You got to look at yourself in the mirror, and you got to be able to say to yourself, like, this is me. This is who
What's this accent?
I don't know. It just came to me. It's real deep, you know. Are you ready to wrap up? I think we got it.
Sounds good.
All right, so that's the end of this episode. But hopefully it's not the end of the discussion or the conversation. Feel free to like fact check us on stuff and just roast us and be like, you guys are wrong. It was actually 5.35 million. Be sure to research some of the points presented, absolutely.
Yeah.
And feel free to shoot us an email at theuniversepodcast@gmail.com. The Universe, UNIVERSED podcast@gmail.com with any questions you may have, if there's suggestions you'd like to see in the future, if there's something else about like something we may have said that you want to push back against or add to, like definitely do that.
Please
We're ready.
do.
And because they may get answered in a future episode. Also be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Universe Podcast. We are on SoundCloud. We have episodes on YouTube, and also we're up on Spotify.
We're up on Spotify now. Hooray!
So this is Ana.
And Gabe.
With production by
Ana. Also Morgan.
And Morgan's on our production team. And from this, stay versed, y'all.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Love you.